Hey everyone, welcome to Why Life Inspired. I'm your host, Scott Keys. Now, in today's Quick Thoughts video, I'm going to tell you why I'm not as good as I once was. And I think some of you are going to relate to this, so stay tuned. We're going to talk about this concept right after this. Now, this video is going to be found down in my Quick Thoughts playlist. I've got a lot of playlists down there, by the way. But if you want some opinion pieces and just me talking about photography and wildlife photography, check out that playlist. You may find some interesting things down there. Today's video, I'm going to tell you why I'm not as good as I used to be. But before I do, I want to remind you, hit the subscribe button down there. There's a lot of people often I wait till the end to tell you to subscribe, but I'm going to tell you right now, make sure you hit that subscribe button and hit the bell for notifications. It'll let you know when I have a new video out. But today's quick thought, I want to tell you why I'm not as good as I used to be. And there's a couple backstories to this one. I have a little chat group, and a lot of us belong to these groups, a photography club or maybe just an online chat group, and some really talented photographers in there. And we were talking about Bird Photographer of the Year. It's a contest. It's a really big contest. It's actually, I think, the only contest I entered annually for the last 5 years. I would typically put in a submission of 5 images into a portfolio. And I didn't put in a lot of individual images, but for 4 of the last 5 years, I was asked to resubmit images, which means part of a short list, or at least a judge, looked at my work and said, hey, there's worth more looks here. And it made me feel good. Never won anything, but it made me feel like, hey, I'm validated in that a very, what I think is a very well-run contest by very good judges wants more of my work and they want to see more. So for the last 5 years, felt really good about this. And last year I had a couple portfolio images that they asked for as well. So this year, my chat group lights up like, hey, photographer of the year, you guys get anything? And they share some images. And I'm thinking, hold on. I barely even post on Instagram anymore. I used to post every day. Can't remember the last time I got really excited about one of my images. And I thought, man, I used to post every day on Instagram. I used to get a lot of feedback on Instagram. I used to feel really good. I used to look at my images and say, hey, there's a special one. That one's really good. And it would happen every couple months. I can't remember the last time it happened. And I thought, man, 2024, you weren't kind to me, but I'm not as good as I once was. And as I said that to myself, and I literally had this moment where I said, I'm not as good as I once was. I remembered back in the old days, I used to work for a company and we had a national convention and we worked with artists. So it was a big company and we had proprietary licensing agreements where artists would come perform for us. So over the years, I saw some really great artists working for this company. But at this one national sales meeting, I'll never forget, it opened with the lead singer of Aerosmith doing an acoustic. We had Santana there, had some big songs out at the time. This is going back. We had Earth, Wind, and Fire, which is a favorite band of mine. And sandwiched in between several acts was Toby Keith. And as I said to myself, I'm not as good as I once was. I remembered the moment I was sitting in the audience listening to a song of his. And the song said, I'm not as good as I once was. And the song was kind of about aging. Feeling like, man, I lost a step. I lost my edge. So more on that. But it made me think, like, have I really lost it? Like, am I really not good? And it shouldn't be that way because from a skill standpoint, my skills haven't diminished. I mean, I understand my camera better than I ever have. I understand photography better than I ever have, honestly. Doing these YouTube videos gives me a chance to research and learn, and I do a lot of research for this. So I've learned more about the photography itself, the skill, the genre. I also am better at knowing animal behavior and especially bird behavior than I ever have been. I can tell you what time of year, where they'll be, what they're eating on, what the plants look like. And I know locations better than I ever have. So I know where the sun comes up, what the light looks like. I know all this stuff. So I should be better. So 2024, why were you so hard on me? And why do I feel like I'm not that good? And then I reflected on the time that I spent. In years past, I would put hundreds of hours into the field. And this year, I had a tough year at work. I have a full-time job, which, God willing, I can leave soon. But I had my full-time job was really tough. I took people on workshops. So even when I was out in the field, I was working with clients and I was trying to help them get great images. And so when I think about the times that I was individually out by myself, it was a fraction, 20% of the time that I normally would be out in the field this year. And I realized how important that time is to a wildlife photographer. With some genres, right? We could set up a studio, and if I've got the skills and the experience, I can create an image and I can control it, right? I can control the lighting in a studio. I can pose a model that wants to work with me if that's what you're doing, or I can stage the objects. All of those things, I can do that. But in wildlife, there's too many variables. I got to get the right light. So maybe I have an idea about light, but light is light. Clouds are clouds. Like, things are going to happen. I got to get a subject that cooperates. It could be that special pose is what makes a great image. And I had this idea about how many images do you have to take before you get a good one. I think in my head, it's like 1 in 1,000 is good. I'm not talking about great. I'm talking about good. 1 in 10,000 might be great. It might be 1 in 50,000 times that I click that little shutter that I get an image that I'm like, that is a wall hanger. I'm going to put that on my wall. It's art. I'm going to enter it into a contest. So how much do you have to be out in the field to get those clicks in? And it takes a lot of time. And so led me to think about a couple things. How many other people feel this way? And it's okay. Life happens. Time gets constrained. Interests change. I spent so much more time. One of the reasons I wasn't out in the field is I've created these native gardens at my house over the last 5 years, and I get so many insect pictures. I love macro now, and I'm spending more time. It's closer to home. I can control it a little bit. I found the compositions easier, got the equipment, and I'm like, macro is really, really interesting to me now. Still love birds and still love wildlife, but that change in interest affected my work. And all of that is to say it's okay. Listen, some of us are going to earn a living from this. It's a very small percentage. Most of us are going to be hobbyists. Some of us we're doing to feed our egos. We want clicks and we want likes and we want all of that, and no judgment. But it's okay to feel like, hey, maybe you're not having a great year, or maybe you're not as good as you once were. Speaking of the macro work, I think I am actually a better macro photographer than I ever have been. I'll flash a few images up here as I wrap this video up, because I want to mention one other thing. When I listened to that song, what really caught my attention was not the line, I'm not as good as I once was. It was the following line, which said, I'm still as good once as I ever was. So as I went back through my pictures of 2024, kind of feeling inferior, I thought, you know what? Got a couple in here. And so as this video winds down, I'm going to remind you to subscribe to the channel and click that bell for notifications. I'm going to say, I hope we can continue to find inspiration in wildlife together. But most importantly, I'm going to fade out to a few of my images over 2024. I hope you appreciate them. And maybe you agree with me that they're not too bad. And sometimes, even if you're not as good as you once were, you might be as good once as you ever were.
But I'm as good once as I ever was. May not be good as I once was, but I'm as good once as I ever was. May not be good as I once was, but I'm as good once as I ever was.